Now, one thing you should know about LSAT scores that law schools publish. The median LSAT score that a law school brags about does not include a big chunk of the people sitting in that building. For example, transfers get left out of it on purpose. The reported LSAT median only counts first-year matriculants, so a school can post a great number in the fall, then quietly refill the class with transfer students whose scores never show up anywhere near it. For example, Georgetown enrolled 120 transfers in the fall of 2025, the most in the country, according to the American Bar Association's 509 disclosures. Now, here's another one, and I'll come back to this. The 94% employment stat on the brochure includes jobs the school itself paid for. So a median is not a ranking. Those are two different things, and the schools blur them for a reason. The median is one number describing last year's class. It is the number your file gets compared to the second an admissions reader opens it. If a school's median jumps and your LSAT didn't jump, you just became a reach at a place that was a target 12 months ago. And that jump is real. This past fall, the average LSAT median across every ABA-approved law school went up 1.79 points in a single year. Out of roughly 196 schools, only 3 of them dropped their median. And so that safety you picked off last year's chart is probably not a safety anymore. In other words, your number didn't change, while the target did change. And it's not only the LSAT bar that climbed, GPA medians moved also. The average GPA median across all law schools is now at 3.65, up from 3.36 10 years ago. And Texas A&M brought in a 1L class with a 4.0 median last fall. So the students you're stacked against look stronger on paper than any class in history. 2 of your 3 big admissions numbers, GPA and reputation, are basically frozen by the time you hit submit. Now, schools are effectively aiming for a median about 1 point higher than the one they just published. The 509 number is a rear view mirror. It describes the class that already enrolled, not the bar you've got to clear this cycle. So when you look at a school's posted median and think to yourself, I'm right there, you're reading a number that's already behind the live competition. Now let's talk about scholarships. A conditional scholarship is money the school hands you that you keep only if you hit a certain GPA or class rank as a 1L. It's a cutoff. And law schools rank on a curve, they grade on a curve, and so a fixed slice of the class is mathematically guaranteed to land below that line. The ABA makes schools publish their retention data under Standard 509, so this trap is fully disclosed. It's printed right there for anybody who bothers to look. You show up for a scholarship, you get put on a curve, and a chunk of students watch that money evaporate after 1L when transferring out is already hard. And the money picture gets worse. Everybody imagines themselves getting a full ride, but across all law schools, less than 7% of students get a full tuition scholarship or better. The average median scholarship is about $23,911. The average all-in cost of attendance is roughly $82,000. And so the generous aid the brochure implies is for most people just a small discount on a huge sticker price. Now, the gap you're covering yourself just got harder to finance. Federal loans for grad school are now capped at $50,000 a year. The cost of attendance is $82,000 a year on average, and so the difference goes to private loans, which are tough to lend without strong credit or a cosigner. Now look at this. The transfer game has rules that give it away. If a school enrolls 12 or more transfers, it's got to report GPA quartiles. Between 6 and 11, just the median. 5 or fewer, they report nothing at all. So a school can bring in a handful of below median transfers and legally disclose almost nothing about who they are. Now let's talk employment. The record 93.4% employment rate for the class of 2024, the highest ever, comes with an asterisk. Jobs the law school or university itself funds now get folded into that headline number. US News only gives those school-funded jobs partial credit in the rankings unless they're full-time, long-term, and actually require the bar. And so employed and employed in a real job somebody else paid for are two different things, even though the brochure only prints one number. Now, Here's what they won't say out loud. Bar passage required jobs, the actual lawyer jobs, were 84.3% of the class of 2024. So it's still a genuinely strong year. Now, I'm not here to tell you the market's collapsing because it's not, but 84.3 and 93.4 are 9 points apart, and that gap is stuffed with JD Advantage roles, part-time work, and school-funded jobs. Now, in the 2026 U.S. News methodology, employment outcomes are 33%, and bar passage is another 25%. Your LSAT and GPA together come to about 10% of the ranking. But that 10% still decides your money, the scholarships that you get. Now, the reputation score, a full 25% of the whole ranking, is basically just a popularity contest. Half of it is law school deans and faculty rating each other on a scale of 1 to 5. The other half is lawyers and judges. And plenty of the people filling out those surveys have never set foot in the schools they're scoring. And so that whole 25% of a school's rank is based on reputation that lags reality by years and barely budges. A school can coast for a decade on a name it earned before you were applying, and you're told to read that as a measure of today's quality. Now, you might remember the big rankings boycott a couple of years back. Yale and Harvard pulled their data in 2022, and more than 60 other law schools followed. Everybody said the rankings were finished, but they're not. US News just switched to using the ABA's public data and kept ranking every school anyway. And then this year in 2026, Stanford knocked Yale out of the #1 spot for the first time in 36 years. And that shows that the rankings machine never needed the school's permission in the first place. One more I want to share. The acceptance rate on the brochure is another one. It's only worth about 1% of the US News formula, but it's front and center in every selective pitch. The average law school admitted 36% of applicants this cycle. It's selective sounding, but tiny actual weight. They like to leave with the number that impresses you, not the number that actually moves them. Now, this next one is my read, not a published fact, so take it as analysis, as opinion. Schools protect their yield, meaning the share of students who enroll. My honest bet is that a school who reads an applicant as being a flight risk, someone in the school thinks will pick a better offer, might get waitlisted instead of getting admitted, so the school doesn't take a hit when you say no. I can't give you the school's internal files on this, those are undisclosed, but the incentive is real, and it explains a lot of those people wondering why they got waitlisted with such good numbers. Now, this past cycle, class sizes ballooned. Total 1L enrollment hit 42,817 students this fall, up roughly 8% in 1 year and up 13% since 2023. Bigger sizes, bigger class sizes means the ABA's own analysts are watching the class of 2028 because if legal hiring softens, more graduates are going to be competing for the same number of seats. And you should know that sticker price is not net price. The roughly $82,000 cost of attendance is the sticker price, but the scholarship is the discount that you get off the tuition. And what sets the size of your discount is not your essays, it's mostly your numbers. The school decides how badly it wants you. They decide how valuable you are to helping them boost their status in the rankings, and then they give you a price based on that. Now, when you're reading a school stats, the number that protects your wallet, that gives you a discount, is the 75th percentile, not the median. If you land at or below the median, you're more likely to pay full tuition to prop up their rankings. If you land above the 75th percentile, you're the applicant they're trying to buy. And Yale's 75th percentile LSAT this fall was a 177. That's where a school in the top 6 will start writing you checks. Now, one more myth I should bust here. The idea of LSAT optional, or we take the GRE, does not mean the law school is test optional. Doesn't mean it'll be any easier to get in. Only about 1.24% of this fall's enrolled students came in on a GRE score. The LSAT is still, by a wide margin, the dominant test in law school admissions. Just because they accept alternatives doesn't mean there's a backdoor in. So let me tell you what I would actually do with all this. The median is not a floor. The median is the number you've got to beat. You want to get ideally above the 70th percentile to maximize your odds of getting in and also getting scholarship money. The medians are always rising year over year. They're a trailing metric of last year's numbers, but your LSAT score is the piece of this you still control. You can't touch the reputation surveys. Your undergraduate GPA is probably pretty locked by this point, but your LSAT score is the one input you can go out and change, and it makes schools compete for you with real money instead of conditional money. Think about what the score actually buys now. 28 schools posted a 170 plus median this past fall. 10 years ago, that was only 5 schools. The bar moved up. But a higher bar means a strong score is worth more money and more admits than it's ever been worth because every school is chasing the same medians you can move. And a strong score is how you land above that 75th percentile instead of being below the median. Above it, you're the reason their number goes up, so they pay you to come. Below it, you're the one funding somebody else's scholarship. Same school, same year, the score decides which side of that line you're on. And it's the one thing you can actually retake. The LSAT is cleaner and simpler today than it was a couple of years back. No logic games for the past 2 years. It's now 2 score logical reasoning sections. That's 2/3 of your score, 1 reading comp section for the other third, plus 1 unscored extra section on that same 120 to 180 scale. Fewer moving parts, more of your outcome riding on skills you can drill. And if you want my help, I'm offering a free LSAT tutoring lesson for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free tutoring lesson with me personally at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG.